We need to talk about Dragonage the Veilguard. I don't want to, but we have to. Let me start off by saying that I have never played the games and I don't know what the story is about, but I don't think I need to due to the other half of the subject that I want to talk about in this video, which leads to the reasoning for this video. There is a clip from the game that is going viral. I'm sure you know about it, but in case you don't, it's about this cutscene right here where a character misgenders another character and the character, aka the writers, spend 2 minutes educating you, the player, on the do's and don'ts of apologizing to an LGBTQ individual. Now, people have been making fun of this scene, and rightfully so, but from the reaction videos I've seen, no one's pointing out the hypocrisy that is this scene, and that's why I'm making this video. Normally, I steer clear away from topics like this, but since I'm going to be talking about the writing specifically, I made an exception. So, we're going to watch the clip in parts because I want to avoid getting our copyright strike. With that said, let's get started.
Pounding that snake's nose, she's still holding the ruby in her other hand. Maker's panties, I was so proud. Ah, shit. They're still holding it. Sorry.
Okay, so this scene is self-explanatory. Pirate Hat Isabella used the wrong pronoun when referring to Tosh, the demon. I assume that's what the character is supposed to be. Like I said, I don't play the game, so I don't know what the races are in this universe. Anyway, Isabella doesn't realize she misspoke, and the pixie elf hesitantly points it out to her, and she apologizes for the slip of the tongue. Under normal circumstances, that would be the end of the scene at 16 seconds, but no, this is a 2-minute clip. But before moving on, I want to highlight that Tosh, the character that is supposed to be offended by this innocent slip of the tongue, doesn't respond to it. When Isabella said the wrong pronoun, Tosh does slightly react to it, which tells me the character is probably slightly annoyed, but not enough to make a scene about it. But then the pixie elf had to open her mouth.
What are you doing?
Pulling a barb.
Oh, okay.
A barb?
Tradition in the Lords of Fortune from one of our old members, Barv. Good guy, but like most of us, his plans went sideways a lot. Bad blood among your crew's not good for morale, but there's not always time for big drawn-out apologies. So when one of us screws up and we know we've screwed up, we do a quick 10 to put it right. Pulling a Barv. Oh, there we go.
This part is a bit confusing to me. The dialogue makes no sense. Isabella said that when there's no time to properly apologize, big drawn-out apologies in her words, you pull a barb, meaning 10 push-ups. That's supposed to be quicker than just plainly saying I'm sorry and that they'll try harder next time. Also, technically, Isabella did apologize, though it did feel half and she didn't even look at Tosh when she said it. The writing is so unnatural in the scene because Isabella had the opportunity to properly apologize to Tosh when Pixie Elf pointed out her blunder, but that wasn't good enough. Not because the character that's supposed to have been offended said it wasn't good enough, but because Isabella decided it wasn't good enough, making a bigger deal and spectacle of the subject, which is Tosh.
I'm glad the Lords of Fortune have Tosh's back.
Oh, Tosh isn't the first non-binary member of the Lords.
Really?
It was a little before your time, but Horlicks was one of ours. Huh. Bastard looked better than I did in a dress or pants. And out of them too.
I don't know if you guys are picking up on this, but Tosh looks so uninterested in the conversation. This character was just told about another character that identified similar to them, and this is Tosh's response.
Oh, Tosh isn't the first non-binary member of the Lords.
Really?
It was a little before your time, but Horlicks was one of ours. Huh.
There's no follow-up question of any kind, which usually implies that the individual either doesn't want to continue the conversation or wants to move past the subject of the conversation.
Any reason you can't just apologize?
Sometimes people say, oops, sorry, and hope that fixes it. But they just want to get the whole thing over with. Trust me, I know. But pulling a barb, you sweat a little. Makes you think about it a little more. Shows the other person you mean it.
What if they mean it when they say they're sorry, though?
And that's the other reason. Some people mess up and get all dramatic. They make it about them.
That's literally what you just did. I just said that. Instead of apologizing to Tosh and moving past the subject, you literally made a spectacle of your apology, putting the attention on yourself and extending the conversation of this particular subject, meaning Tosh, when it's clear that that character has no desire to continue the conversation. Are you seeing the hypocrisy yet?
Oh, you know I didn't mean it right. I'd never do that on purpose. They feel so bad about it that it's on everyone else to smooth it over and make them feel better.
You did those push-ups to make yourself feel better and show everyone else how apologetic you are. Tosh didn't tell you to do those push-ups. If this character actually gave a shit and thought about her friend for 5 seconds, then maybe the thought might have crossed her mind that Tosh might feel embarrassed about her doing those push-ups, bringing more attention to a subject that Tosh seems to have no interest in, given they haven't contributed to the conversation. This is a troll, just like that Dustborn game. It has to be a troll.
Oh, okay. Yes, some people might do that.
Pulling a barb puts it on the person who screwed up. They made the mess, they fix it, done.
Isn't that the point of an apology? You're acknowledging you messed up and you're trying to make amends by apologizing. Of course, if you give a half-hearted apology like Isabella did, it's not going to sound or feel authentic at all. But what does doing push-ups do but put the attention on the one doing the push-ups? I think people have forgotten the point of an apology. It's not about the person doing the apologizing. It's about the individual they hurt and whether or not they're ready or willing to forgive. This scene does not work for a multitude of reasons. For one, if you're going to have a subject about self-identity, then it stands to reason that the person leading the conversation should be the one that the subject impacts the most. This literal 2-minute clip had the subject of the conversation, Tosh, only say 4.12 seconds of lines, which was just 1 to 2 words per line, and one of them isn't technically a word.
What are you doing? Oh. Okay. Really? Huh.
The LGBTQ community has made a plethora of statements about themselves, such as how they're being underrepresented and how their voices have been silenced over the years. I'm not here to argue. I'm just repeating what they have quoted. But this is where the hypocrisy fully comes in when it comes to the game, particularly with this scene. By their standards, Tosh is a representation of a silenced minority group. Do you get where I'm going with this? I don't know what role Tosh's character plays in the game, but in this clip, Tosh is unironically being silenced by the characters that are there to support and affirm them. Isabella is the worst to do that. The male character made a statement which opened the conversation for Tosh to join in, but Isabella quickly took control of the conversation and then addressed Tosh. This sounds stupid as hell, but it comes off as if she wants credit for including Tosh. And you know what I just noticed? The other two characters don't directly address Tosh. Again, they're clearly there to support and affirm Tosh. Why else would the pixie elf open her mouth and call Isabella out? But how can they do that when they don't engage with the character they're supposed to be defending, especially when Tosh is just a few feet away from them? At this point, Tosh comes off as a prop for them to display so they can feel better about themselves and pat each other on the back. It kind of comes off narcissistic, especially Isabella. I don't know about her character, but this 2-minute clip made me dislike her the most. She comes off self-righteous as she educates the other characters in the room. But let's not kid ourselves. She's lecturing the players as if they're kids, which is a bit insulting when you look at the age rating for this game. It's 17 and up, but the quality of writing makes me think they were writing this for 13-year-olds. I'm going to be honest, I think they're trolling. The people making this game knew what kind of response they would get, especially when, to my knowledge, I don't think this kind of stuff existed within the prior Dragon Age games. Again, I have never played these games, but I have not heard anyone mention any of the previous games having this specific context within it, and realistically, it shouldn't. At least the traditional sense. Hear me out, okay? Don't get mad. Just hear me out. LGBTQ characters have always existed within storytelling in some shape or form. Even when there were restrictions of mentioning this community, passionate writers found ways to include them in stories. The fantasy genre is the most forgiving of genres for LGBTQ characters. Do you know why? There is no rules to fantasy. It doesn't have to adhere to the same rules as our reality. Why do you think the Lord of the Rings films is so beloved and celebrated? The creators of the films understood they had to significantly separate our world from Tolkien's, so we, the audience, can fully immerse ourselves within this new foreign world without feeling so tethered to our reality. Even the dialect is different from our own. That's how we're able to better suspend our disbelief, by creating enough distance between our worlds, but keeping enough similarities so we can sympathize with the characters regardless of their race, species, or gender. When it comes to this game, or any fantasy setting in general, it's important to balance how much of our reality we insert into these fantastical settings, especially if we don't alter the vocabulary to those meanings and expressions. Raya and the Last Dragon suffered heavily from that, where the characters used modern slang and it didn't make sense for the fantasy setting the movie took place in. Other YouTubers have mentioned how the dialogue writing in period movies had become laxed over the years, which affects the quality of immersion. That's another issue people are having with modern movies, games, and other forms of media. The distance between reality and stories is shrinking, preventing an escape that we normally seek in these forms of entertainment. I think that's why I didn't like Rebel Moon, not just because the story was crap, but because the world building mirrored too much of our history. The main antagonists in the film were Nazis, and there was no effort to hide that, as the costume uniforms were damn nearly identical to real SS officers' uniforms. That's the real problem here. The problem is not LGBTQ characters. The problem is that the writers are not putting any creative effort to be innovative or artistic with these representations, so they match the setting of the story they are being inserted into, because anything less is a disservice, not just to the communities they're writing about, but to the craft of writing.
We were romantics. We didn't just read poetry. We let it drip from our tongues like honey. Spirits soared, women swooned, and gods were created, gentlemen. Not a bad way to spend an evening, eh?
Instead of using modern words like non-binary, what the writers could have done in this game was alter the perception of the identity for Tosh's species, revealing that Tosh doesn't conform to their ways, alluding to the character being non-binary, which would reveal the character's identity in a more natural way without literally stopping the game to lecture its audience, which does nobody any favors. And realistically, this directness is a lazy attempt at representation. Life sometimes sucks and we need a moment to get away from it. But when you are this blatant about the messaging, you're stopping the entertainment to preach. You're not letting the people you claim to be representing escape into your game, and instead, you're pressing their faces against the glass. Instead of properly representing these groups, they're used as a tool to blame, shame, or preach to the audience, which only creates an even bigger divide, and the worst part is, we fall for it. Both sides do. The fact that there's so many respawn videos to this one clip is proof of that. There's that adage, all publicity is good publicity, but that's not true. Bad publicity will only garner a bad reputation, and no one is going to want to associate with that. No one's going to want to play these games because they're showing how much they don't care about their craft or their audience. That's all I have to say on the matter. What did you think about the clip? Thanks for watching and like and subscribe. Are you me? I literally just finished this video and new cutscenes from the game is released about the character Tosh. Alright, let's have a look.
Here, vegetables.
Thank you.
So, I'm non-binary.
I already said my piece about why I don't like that word in the game. It's just too much of a modern word in a fantasy setting. I did not realize just how unappealing this character design is. In the other clip, I was so focused on the other characters that I didn't pay much attention to Tosh, but damn. The mother looks more appealing. I think it's the hair. It's the hair. I think that's what it is. The horns are too distracting due to their size. When I look at the mother, the hair complements the horns by covering up where they protrude from, so it's less distracting and you can focus on the face.
What does that mean?
It means I don't feel like a man or a woman.
If you are neither a man nor a woman, then what are you?
Non-binary. I just said, and I'm going to use they instead of she from now on.
Okay, the writing right here does not do any favors for this character. Obviously, we are supposed to sympathize with Tosh as this is a coming out scene, but the mother is valid to have questions, especially since it's made clear that she doesn't understand what Tosh is talking about, but Tosh is getting upset and acting offended for having to answer questions to a conversation that they started. Where the hell is his attitude in the other clip? This makes Tosh come off entitled. Not to mention, if this isn't part of their culture, then Tosh should have been prepared to answer questions that the mother might have. It's natural to have questions about a topic so personal that can be life-changing.
If this is because I have criticized your dress or your manners...
It isn't!
Under the Cune, the term for one whose gender does not match the one given to them at birth was a Cunithlock. Perhaps you are like that.
Why do you have to keep picking at it? Why can't you just be happy for me?
Evatosh, Shakrato Ebra.
So I'm supposed to struggle with who I am? Even if I don't feel like I fit, even if I feel wrong?
No, you misunderstood.
Then say it better!
What the hell? God, this conversation is exhausting, but let's break it down anyway. So it appears that they do have some form of LGBTQ in their culture, a cuniflock, and from the mother's description, it seems to fall under the trans umbrella. That's what I'm getting. However, Tosh is me off. The mother is putting in the effort to make sense of something that she doesn't understand and is using parts of her culture to better comprehend Tosh's newfound identity. However, Tosh is refusing to continue the conversation they themselves started and elaborate so the mother can better understand. That's how we learn to accept things, by having a better understanding of it. It doesn't always work, but it's the main consensus of how we learn. Like I said earlier, it comes off that Tosh is offended that the mother isn't blindly accepting what Tosh told her and is essentially gaslighting her in thinking she is in the wrong, and there are people who do that. That's what makes me think this is a troll. The writers, intentional or not, are holding up a mirror. That's all I'll say about that.
Why am I never enough for you?
I will go. Thank you for inviting me to your home. Panahedan.
All of that was new for her. Just give her some time.
No. It's okay.
Tosh?
I'm not hiding anymore. How she takes it is her problem.
You sure?
Yeah. Come on. Don't let food go to waste.
Seriously? Seriously, you're upset that your mother didn't blindly affirm you to you right then and there, despite the fact that you're refusing to expand upon this new identity that you claimed for yourself, knowing that it doesn't seem to exist within your culture, and then you get mad at your mother for trying to fill in the blanks herself because, again, you refuse to further explain so she can better understand you and the decisions you are making. No wonder you're friends with Isabella. You're just as narcissistic as she is. This writing is so shit. Obviously, we're supposed to feel sorry for Tosh, but how can you when she's acting like an ass towards her mother? I didn't show the very beginning of this scene, but it starts with Tosh's mother pointing out how rich the food is and requests some vegetables. Tosh obliges her, and I know what this was supposed to set up.
Here. Armada Special. It's what the pirates eat when they come to port.
This is too rich for me. Perhaps you could prepare some vegetables.
Fine. Here. Vegetables.
This was supposed to paint the mother as a demanding, controlling woman that has to have it her way, which is supposed to foreshadow her refusal to accept Tosh. And it could have worked, it was an okay enough setup, but the way they portrayed Tosh just f***ed all that up. I don't know what else to say. This game is a joke, the writing is a f***ing joke, and this entire sequence is a farce.